Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Leslie Rivera with
Eunice, Levi,
and we are Café Negro con genre.
genre.
Con genre or con genre?
Con genre. Con genre.
Who do we have on today?
We are speaking with Michael Diaz, also known as Juan Bago.
Juan Bago! So, let's do this.
Let's do it. Welcome to Café Negro con genre. Today we are talking with Michael Diaz, aka Juan Bago.
Juan Bago. Now, do you also go by Miguel or just Michael Diaz?
No, just Michael Diaz. I think because the way my name is spelled, my relatives always call me Michael. So every time I went to Dominican Republic, they're like, Michael is not spelled that way. Michael is M-E-I-C-O. So I'm like, okay, fine. So there was never the Miguel. It was more of like, damn, your parents dropped the ball with Michael. They didn't spell it right.
Being like, screw it all. I'm just gonna be Juan Bago.
Yeah, that's apparently it's much easier for Juan Bago than Michael Diaz. So what can we do?
It's so funny, Michael. So I obviously when I first found you, we'll talk about Juan Bago, the story about Juan Bago in a minute. But when I first found out about you years ago, and I followed you, I think, on Facebook, and you and I share a birthday or like a day off. And I used to say to you, happy birthday, Juan, and you'll respond. So I'm like, I thought your name was Juan for the longest time.
Yeah.
I called you Juan, and you never corrected me. So I was like, all right. Cool.
Yeah. It's funny. It works out sometimes when like I have people hitting me up and like, hi, Michael. Apparently you're the manager of Juan Bago. I like to discuss rates for Juan Bago. I'm like, absolutely. So then I get to play bad cop and good cop because people think that sometimes Juan Bago and Michael Diaz are two separate people. So it's beautiful. So happy belated birthday.
Thank you. Same to you.
Thank you.
Oh, I feel left out.
When's your birthday?
Marzo 26.
Oh, so you're an Aries. Yes. Yeah. Okay. All right. Cool. It's like a Cancerian, but it's Aries are cool. Aries is cool. But I don't want to get this become a horoscope podcast.
Let's talk about movies.
Y'all hard-headed and stubborn, and it's like, nah, chill you. No, it's fine.
Yeah, you already know me too well.
So Michael, tell us about the beginnings. I know that the first time that that I got to know you was through the story of Juan Bago, but what was your intent with that? It was damn funny, but it was also almost like a delayed coming of age story, and it was dramatic, and you acted. I actually thought that you directed yourself, but you didn't, right?
Right. The original intent was to cast somebody to be Juan Bago, but the thing was you know how independent filmmaking is mostly weekends, and then there would be like 11 o'clock shoot because I had to do some elevator scenes in my building, and the best time to shoot the elevators is like when no one's in it, and that's like 11 o'clock at night. Yeah. So it got to a point where I felt like it was going to be a very demanding schedule for the lead actor. So then I was just like, all right, I'll play Juan Bago. And I ended up playing the role, but it was not my original intent. My original intent has always been like behind the scenes, behind the camera, whatever, like writing wise. But then I'm like, damn, I might not finish the project or find somebody with like the shoelace budget that I had to really have a demand, because the lead had a demanding schedule. So I played Juan Bago. So the original intent, it was supposed to be a short film. Like my first real taste of filmmaking was the HBO Latino Film Festival, right? When it was international, right? It was at the time is the biggest film festival across the country. I had a friend of mine who worked with Calixto Chinchilla, and was like, look, you got to come to this film festival. You're funny, you write a lot of stuff. Because at the time I was writing a lot of little short stories on this website called migente.com, and I would like write funny stuff. And my friend was like, yo, you need to go to the film festival, check it out. So when I went to the film festival, I was like, oh my God, there's short films. In my mind, I'm like, features, theater. There was short films of 7, 8, 15 minutes. And so when I saw that and I met some people, that's when the bug started to come. Because at that time, I was just real tired of auditioning, and it was just all these negative things. I mean, we all know, like drug dealers, everything, right? And so here I am. I'm like, I'm Dominican. I've been living in Washington Heights for a few years. Where are the funny ones? Where is like the deal? Where is the family? Where is that? All we seeing on television and some films were negative, portrayed us negatively. So I then decided to write the story of Juan Bago, but it was like a 40-minute. But I guess my writing style has always been where it's like, there was one version that was like 45 minutes. And then I was like, oh, let's write one more scene. And then it became 50 minutes. And then before it was all done, when we wrapped the film, it was like an hour and 20, but it wasn't the original 10. The original 10 was a short, but we kept adding scenes. My friend's like, yo, that don't make sense, man. How is that? Like, oh, hold on. Give me a minute. I'm going to write a scene that explains that in there. So one of the original notes that I got was like, it feels like this film feels like it was like a vignette of things. And of course, at the time, as a first time filmmaker, I had the ego. I'm like, what do you know? This is a feature. Oh wow, the spirit of the person that I was talking about. So my original intent was just to provide something as a writer, as a filmmaker, to put out there that was a comedy, because a lot of, at that time as well, a lot of the Dominican comedy was from Dominican Republic, which has its own type of vibe.
Yeah.
Where there's nothing Americanized or Dominican from New York or here. So I was like, yo, let me put something that we can relate to. And that's pretty much it. It was just frustrated, and I wanted to create my own thing and just create, because there's no excuse. Like, if I want to do something, I'm gonna do it and put my best foot forward.
Did you ever think about putting your best foot forward, like on YouTube or something like that? Was that in the
At the
early
time? Well, YouTube at the time was so young, because it was 2000 when I shot it. It was 2005. So when I started doing Room 28, the first generation, right? Because we did it back in 2007. That's what we did. We created all this content and we put it on YouTube, and there were sketches. I always thinking out the box was like, okay, at the time, La Mega had a website called La Música, which was across the country, and I got cool with them. And I'm like, yo, what if we put out a sketch each week on La Música? It already had a built-in audience. Now it was skewed a little bit more to Spanish speaking. So, and that was really the tough thing about back in 2005, 2006, 2007 was like, if you were Latino and they would say this to us, like, oh yeah, well, Spanish. I'm like, no, just because you hear Latino doesn't mean we're going to have English. We always had to explain, like, yes, this is Latino content, but we're second generation Latinos. We speak English, we understand stuff. So in the beginning, even when we did YouTube, to kind of marketing was so difficult. But we got blessed that we were able to have La Música to put it out there, and it gave us a nice little buzz, and we be performing live. But back to your thing, YouTube just came out as a tool to allow people to see the content that I was creating at the time.
That's awesome. I know that once you did the story of Juan Bago, your career took off. Did it take off in the way that you wanted? Because I'll tell you that when you did the festival runs and when you were being promoted, and even within like my families and my aunts sending me clips of you, I'm like, it was crazy. I was like, oh my God, you guys know. So it was like you kind of transcended generations, and everyone was talking about you. Did it do what you wanted? What you intended to do?
Well, that's the thing about it, right? So if you think about the whole machine, like, right, the machine of everything, you have the developing of it, the shooting of it and then the marketing of it. Um, I think I got to a point which my biggest strength amongst filmmakers is marketing. I have an eye and understand. I feel that I was networking really aggressively at the time because the community is small, right? Like overall in the country with different film festivals, you have NALIP and you have the LA Film Festival, but in New York it was small, right? So I kind of mastered that. And again, that was the time where social media started as far as with Facebook and, not even Instagram, but Facebook was where you shared it and everybody could share it to everybody. I don't know if I accomplished what I wanted to accomplish because I think that that's something where I talked to my therapist at times was that I feel like once I did Juan Bago, so many people helped me with Juan Bago. Then instead of going and say, okay, let me do my next feature, right? Let me now take it up a notch. Let me get through that. It was such a humbling experience trying to get the film sold. It took me like 2 years, right? Again, why? Because how do you sell a Dominican American film in Washington Heights with a very Caribbean humor and vibe to, at that time, independent production distribution that they just have either Mexican horror or all the stuff. But my film was just stood out. It's like, how do you market it? So it was very exhausting because at that time it's my first child. And me going out there and hearing what the offers were or the reality of what it is, it was very tough to align myself with the reality because I did have that ego. And then I have not understanding that most films that are Latinos was Mexican West Coast. So it's like, where do I go? And so it took a couple of years of me to eventually get to a point where I'm like, I got to move forward. Cause I remember I was just like, I don't care anymore. Like, it's going to take me 2 years to get this thing sold. Like, I worked so hard. So did it accomplish? It gave me, I take Juan Bago, the movie, as my crash course school of life as a filmmaker because I understood either from the writing of it, doing the casting, shooting it with almost no budget, then going to the editing process of it, getting it to the film festival, and then finally getting distribution where as the years gone on, I understood from beginning to end. But on the emotional and as an artist, it was very draining. So yes, afterwards there were different content that we're sharing, but as the filmmaker, I haven't done a feature since my first thing. You know what I mean? Like the other day I was thinking, I was like, yo, my first thing ever, first piece of content I ever did was a full feature, and I haven't done it again. So maybe I need to I eventually want to, but it was it was a very exhausting experience. Which I tell people sometimes, they're like, I want to do a feature. I was like, remember, that's going to be a year, 2 years, 2.5 years of your life, like from the beginning to all the way in the end. It's a process. Be prepared.
Yeah.
That's very, very interesting in terms of starting with the feature, and then like you say, you haven't done a feature yet. Do you think there's any advantage if you were to do another feature? Like if you were to spend those 2 years working on a feature, uh, do you see any upside to that? Or do you feel like going the short route is the way to build the upside?
Well, no, I definitely wanna do a feature. I'm now more prepared. Why? Because again, that time I was doing 80% of everything in a sense, right? Like I literally had to go ahead and in the post production and getting out there, and God bless my lawyer at the time who was helping me out. But right now, yeah, I'm thinking TV stuff, but film wise, right now, if you want to do a film right now, you can go and to accomplish of saying I am a writer of a feature, you literally can go direct to digital, like you can go streaming. So, and if you want, you don't have to be on set. So technically, it is from that perspective, writer, you can, it's easier accomplished. The system is built for that now. If you saying, let me prove that I can write a feature and that it's you can do that now. So the answer to you is eventually, yes, I do want to do features because TV and sketches is great, but like to have a feature, it's always, it's just there. You know what I mean? You can just go, hey, let's watch this movie here. I enjoy it, but maybe that's something that I had to talk to. I should have had a therapist maybe 10 years ago to be talking about what's the mental block to go back to doing features. And it's probably all the trauma and all the experience that I had with the first one, where I was just like, no, I'm scared,
The reason I ask is because, is it the thing about us wanting to make something big versus, everybody talks about like the attention span of people these days. Like, do people want us to make features these days, or do they just want all this short content? You know what I'm saying? Like, as a creator, you want to make something grand and epic, but as the reality of, I mean, I don't know the answer. I don't know, I don't know. I think if you make something great, it doesn't matter if it's a short or a feature. That's what people want.
Right.
But is the feature thing like more in our heads as creators, or is it still valuable? I guess is my question.
Well, let's look at that, right? Let's see how our personal behaviors are, right? Like right now, last night with my wife, I watched, a couple of films on TV, Disney Plus, Netflix. So I feel that the space that we have right now, there's a hunger for it. There's a real true hunger for content that reflects who we are. Again, I feel like the marketing has been the number one nemesis, because they'll say, we'll give you $1 million budget. But then when it comes to marketing, you then hear, oh, that movie. Remember Coco? Coco was all word of mouth. Coco, Disney did not spend any money, quote unquote, to really pump it out there. And it just transcended, right? So I think for us, I feel like the key is filmmakers, telling studios, market us, because like you said, the attention span is like, all right, cool. You could say your movie is coming out in 2 months and people are going to forget. You have to like sometimes hit them over the head, and then the word of mouth is like in the group text or on WhatsApp. Loco, mira, una película está heavy. Go see it. But it takes that one person that shares it to see it. And so I think that the problem is, the misconception is like, oh, they gave you $2 million for a feature. Yeah, but how much in marketing? How much are you really going to push the product out there? Because then they'll look at you and say, oh, see, great film, but no one wants to see it. But it's like, well, yeah, but when you have a white film, you're reminding everybody. I go to ESPN.com and I see it in the right corner. Here comes this movie, right? It's like Ted Lasso. I go on Ted Lasso right now. I'm on ESPN. I'm reminded. I forgot. I like the show, but I forgot. But then ESPN reminded me. So we as content creators, we have to be inspired as far to know that there is a hunger for it, but we have to sort of the battle is the marketing. Like we need to really put our foot down and say, you know what, save 100,000, put it into marketing, market my shit. And I think that will help out, but it will get there. I really feel, I don't know how fast it's going to get there, but it's going to get there. Because even with Vampires versus the Bronx, it's like, at least they did it in the month of horror, right? So it was part of the umbrella there that people, there was white people like, oh, the Vampires versus the Bronx. Oh my God, this is because the people were hungry for it, and they at least placed it during October for it to be discovered,
So speaking of that, we're going to get to Vampires versus Bronx, but I do want to talk about in the trajectory. So from the story of Juan Bago all the way till now, you've done so much. So you have your comedy troupe, you have, you've done the SNL, you've done like just so much. So and your parodies are freaking hilarious. Talk a little bit about that. And let me tell you, when I saw you on TV, I was not expecting it. And when I saw it, I was like, is that Michael? I was like, that's Michael. I was freaking out. I felt like I was on there. So let's talk about that, what you've done so far.
Look, I have pretty much tackled every type of comedy you can, like everything. I mean, from sketch to short film to feature to podcasting to my parody group Bago and No, which when I'm a numbers person, so it was like we had 7 parodies that were either on Mundos and TV3 Music Choice, which when you look at it, we were considered like the Dominican lip syncing Weird Al Yankovic, but we were on Mundos and MTV3, which was not heard of before. So for me, I feel like I'm a type of person, podcasting, for example, it was back in 2013 when I was dating somebody and she's like, oh, you should listen to American Life. I was like, what is, she's like, podcasting? That's just, you should listen to podcasting. It's really good, right? So then I was like, okay, cool. 2 years later, I did a podcast with Jamie Fernandez called The Translators Podcast. And then in 2016, I was like, look, I feel like in the Latino space, there's not that many podcasts. It's either that they have Futuro Media that does Latino USA, and there's NPR had a few, but it wasn't any. So I've always been, oh, here's something. This is an area that I don't hear us. Let me just dive into that, and that's what Room 28. Room 28 was a thing where I was like, what? Well, there was SNL in Living Color, House of Bugging for 1 year with John Leguizamo. Yeah. So at that time, I was like, yo, let's do this. And then it all came full circle when we were like, all right, we did all these sketches in 2017. Now we're performing live. Oh, let's get dressed downstairs. And then we would show the sketches. So for me, I've just been somebody that is very intrigued in different parts of comedy. And I like to just the same spirit that got me to do a feature. I do the same thing with every type of comedy. Like, I just want to get in there. I want to understand it because I think it helps with the next thing that I want to do, because it's like full circle. You learn it. Look, podcasts become TV shows, right? So it's like everything has a thing where it's like, how do you maintain someone's attention and what makes people laugh in that medium? That's the word, medium. And so that's what's driven me in the last 15 years in this independent space that I've been in is that I'm curious. I like to get my foot in there. I like to understand the inner workings of it so that it just allows as an artist just to know everything.
Want to talk about vampires?
So Oz was doing amazing work at SNL directing. I didn't even know for a couple of years that there was a Dominican director. That's how humble and how chill, how calladito is. Because come on, I know some Dominicans that if you're directing SNL, you would hear it every week. Loco, miro, vengo verme. Like, yo, I'm doing. Matter of fact, it would be like the opposite. It would be like, yeah, Lord Michael, yo, that guy. Hey, ¿tú quieres que yo llame a Lord Michael ahora? Ven. Oz is the opposite. Oz is so humble, so about his work. And so he wanted to do his first, feature. And from the beginning process of it was really somebody that respects authenticity, it respects that, yes, this is, film. This is the filmmaking world. You could cheat, you could do this. No. Like, Oz from day one, knowing that he went from the capital de Santo Domingo to LA. Now he's in New York and he wants to do a film that is based out of Washington Heights in the Bronx. Let me be really on point on that. And so from early, it has always come to me to be like, hey, what area? Like, what's this? What about that? What about this? What about that? For him to make sure that the finished product is that when you're in the Bronx or if you're Dominican, you're like, yes, even from the coño, like everything was very authentic. And I think that that's where to me, I love that. I love it when people who know, hey, I wasn't born in the Bronx. I wasn't I never lived in the Bronx. I want to create something that is in the Bronx. Let me get it right. Let me get it authentic. Even with the casting, everything full circle. Because you gotta remember that, you know, his schedule is, you know, May, you're done with SNL, and then you're back late August. Film sometimes takes 3.5 months to shoot. So he had to do it in a concise spot. You had to do with three teenagers as leads, kids. So you have only a certain amount of time during the day. And then you have to do night shots in the middle of the Bronx and in some parts of the projects. So as a somebody that's creating that with all those things that are pushing back, I always give props to him, but he never said, all right, you know what, let's shoot at some part of the Brooklyn. Because they would be like, you know, it's easier. Why don't you just do it? Oh, no, he kept it in there. And that's one thing that I have so much respect for Oz, because he's always maintained to be very authentic and very real to it. So that when you have a family that's watching it, you know, the dad is like, that's that block right there. Yeah, that's that block. And then little kids are like, oh my God, look, it's like Stranger Things, but with kids that look like me. And maybe I want to be in front of the camera. So like I said, that to me, it was a thing where, you know, I was helping him just to make sure that everything was very authentic.
That's
I
awesome.
have mad
Definitely.
respect for that film. Oh, sorry, Eunice, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say it was definitely. I'm from the Bronx, so seeing that and trying to place like where you guys were, I was like, I know that. Oh, that's in the Grand Concourse. That's it. You know, like it just it was really nice to see home, and also like it wasn't like poor poverty, you know, it wasn't like you showed the hood and, you know, you didn't rely on that to make it the Bronx, because that's not, you know, in that felt authentic as well, because that's not all the Bronx is, you know.
Right, right. And on top of that, if you see it, the way that it's shot and really made, because again, those are the little subtleties. It's like Issa Rae and her DP, like the way they shot stuff is subconscious sometimes, and like the way he lit up and made the Bronx look. If you've never been to the Bronx, or if all you heard is Bronx is burning, or the Bronx this, Bronx that, at least that film is warm and it's Bronx, and it gives it a different perception that you've seen in the past. You know, it was about a thing of defending your neighborhood and having pride for your neighborhood. Don't F with the Bronx. But it was shot. The DP is amazing. That same DP was the one that was shooting some of the stuff at SNL. And if you see it, it's just beautifully lit. And so I think that subconsciously too, it's like a lot of times when we watch stuff, and that's why the media is so powerful, is that there's some subtleties that is like, wait a minute. And that's why that was another thing with the film, that's like, it made you feel a lot of pride for being from the Bronx or living in the Bronx.
Yeah.
You know, I really respect also the themes of the film, you know, about exactly what you're talking about. It's like, no, we don't want to be taken over. You know, that's happening all over the place, but we don't want that to happen. That and using a genre film to tell that story. You know what I'm saying? So it's like it's giving you the message as well as entertaining you at the same time. I mean, I always feel like that's the best combination, you know?
Yeah. And then that's the thing about it, is like he has such like, first off, you know, people that know of him say, oh, comedy. No, he loves that horror stuff. He loves that stuff. But then it's like, okay, how can I say a message so that people can really understand? And it you know, it's funny because, you know, that film came out last year. You know, COVID obviously pushed it a little bit, but when he was shooting it, by the time it was coming out, if you go right now to the South Bronx, yo, está cambiando, yo, it is like, and so the timing was perfect, because by the time the movie came out, people were like, yeah, have you gone to South Bronx? There's high risers, expensive luxury thing going on. So it was like, from the inception of the film that he thought of it to by the time it came out, the speed was, everything falls into place. So it was like, to me, it was like, it was great message. But I agree with you 100%. I think a lot of times we can send a message through candy, right? Like when you give a little candy to a kid and then it's got a message, it's like the same thing with our audience. They're enjoying it, they're there, but then that next layer is like, oh, okay, these vampires are really, oh, okay. And so it gets people to kind of like wake up a little bit because we're tired of social media, people going back and forth. Ah. At least when you have when you create an art that speaks for it, people can kind of like, oh, all right, and not fight as much. They'd be like, it's true, you know. So yeah, I agree with you 100%.
In terms of horror, has this made you look at the genre a little bit deeper? Maybe delve into it. Is there any future projects?
Especially because just to piggyback off of last, especially because horror and comedy are like, you know, just mirror, you know, in terms of they mirror each other in terms of emotion and height and what's at stake. Is that something that you're looking into? Or
yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that because like when we were discussing how like would I do a feature the beauty of horror is that sometimes you don't need to attach A-lists. You don't need to put out like, well, in order for this film to get greenlit, you need that. Horror is just like people are already baked in, built in to be like, yo, I want to get scared. I want to feel this.
Mhm.
And it's funny because a couple of my favorite films, Shaun of the Dead, and some of these movies that put in comedy and horror together is a very fascinating combination because it's like, wait a minute, am I supposed to laugh? Oh, the head came off, and you're like, oh. So I like that, and yes, I think that is something where I would love to dive into as far as that genre, combining the comedy and horror, because I like I just said the last few seconds is like I like that dynamic, and I feel like also a lot of times you're able to have some actors that are really good that may not have a huge name and really break out from that, right? Because a lot of times, especially in with Latinos, it's like they're just waiting for an amazing script and a role that has layers, right? I mean, when you look at Orange is the New Black, you see something where it's like they had it was not that, yes, they're in jail, but you see the backstory, you see these layers, and then it's like, oh my God, Diana, all these people are blowing up. So if you do a film that's really well written and they're allowed to have some layers for these characters and really play there, then there's opportunity to have some breakout stars from the opportunity from a film.
Yeah. So Michael, you said that you were writing, you were focused on your writing, and so in that initially also you were almost like an accidental star, right? Because you wanted to stay behind the scenes. So obviously we love seeing you on screen. Your presence is, it's almost like you're made to be in front of the camera. So
Right.
now, have you accepted that you're going to be like a camera entity?
Yeah.
But also, how are you now balancing being a creator and being the artist as well?
So, when you're a Latino, parents are immigrants, growing up, the closest person to say, oh my God, yes, was John Leguizamo. You're like, for me, it took me a while to look. I get it. Like when I'm in meetings or if I'm there, people are like, wow, like I have a certain energy, right? Like, and it's full course, right? Like I could be in a bad mood and be like, oh, he's in a bad mood. So I have that energy. And so a lot of times when I was doing stuff in front of the camera, I was happy. But I gotta be honest with you, like for me to have the opportunity to create a TV show, to create a world, to really when it comes to legacy, I strive more for that. But I definitely my dream is like, yo, let me get a TV show, play a small role, right? I like Michael Pena. To me, when you see some of his roles in the beginning or a certain time, he's like in 10 minutes of an hour and 20, but you don't forget that character that he does. It's like, yo, that's Michael Pena. I like that. I like to go boom, 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 and then come out and be like, oh my God. So So yes, I understand it because I have her energy. I've done videos that have gone viral, and I've had people that are in it as well. But for whatever particular reason, I resonate more. I've always trying to figure that camera presence of it. So I definitely want to be in front of the camera, but my spirit has always been creating and writing and the bigger arc of understanding the world and creating the world. But yeah, I can't. Let's just say I created a something that's gonna come out, and originally I didn't want to be in it, and I was like, oh, let me take a crack at it, and then seeing, I was like, all right, you know what, I, I gotta, like, once in a while, get out there and be in front of the camera. But yes, I have accepted it. But my when I chase legacy, it's more to create the worlds so that we can get more Latino actors and just across the board, because I think that's what we need to do right now. We just need to bum rush. We just need that door opens and it's just like, yo, wang, 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 wang. Because it's like 2%. We need more than 2%. We need more than 2%.
Is that what it is right now?
It's 2 to 4% of overall stuff. It's low. Maybe when the podcast comes out or when the show comes out, they're like, Mike said 2 to 4. It's actually 18. Wow, he's off. No, but I think it's 2 to 4. It's 2 to 4. But still, like, I think
definitely under 5. It's under 5.
Yeah, and it's like, come on.
Yeah,
Too low.
Low.
I also like the idea of, like, from now on, because of what you just said, anytime I see an actor on screen for a short period of time just killing it, I'm gonna be like, yo, we just Michael Pena that ish.
Yeah. Like, Michael Pena was in what was that show on HBO that he was like a struggling baseball player, and Michael Pena was like this drug lord in Mexico that the guy was playing on his baseball team, and he was just, I'm like, yo, he was on like in 3 episodes as Eastbound and down.
Yes, with the curly hair. Yes, with the mullet. Yes.
Yo, Michael was like in 3 episodes, and I'm like, yo, like, I love that. Like, to me, I love, because you could have like, not a series, you can have a dramedy, you can have like a comedy, but then you can have that one character just come in and just go, and you're like, and then keep going. I love that. Like, that to me. So yeah, Michael, we could start that trend now. Like, yo, that dude Michael Pena did
it.
Yeah.
I totally understand what you're saying. I love when actors come and just elevate and then leave, and you're just like, whoa, what was that? It really adds something to it. Yeah, I totally agree with you. Michael Pena did. That's it.
Yeah, that's it. Great job, Mr. Rivera. Great job. That was really good.
So, Michael, now your upcoming work.
Mm-hmm.
What do we have to look forward to?
Well, since COVID, a little before COVID, and maybe like 2017, 2018, I was like, look, I need to get back into, creating pilots and stuff. So I've been doing that, but it escalated during COVID, obviously, right? Everybody was kind of refocusing. I was like, what is the purpose, right? I'm home all day. My time is of, and the other thing funny too is because a lot of times people say, oh, you're at home all day, you could be writing 5 features. It's like, nah, if my mental health is not in the right place, I don't care if I'm home 22 hours a day and I walk and I come back. It doesn't work that way. And it was a fascinating thing too, because a lot of people that, like, last March and April, everybody's like, oh, all creators and writers, they're at home. Oh my God, this is it. They're in writer's room, but they get to write their pilot. It's like, no. But for me now, I'm focusing on that. I was 100% into that. And then I, do something what people do, and spoke to a mentor or two, and they're like, hey, listen, you need to remind people of you being able to produce little content here and there, just to remind people. So I have a project that I wanted to do prior to COVID. This amazing writer, voiceover editor, sound design person named Anthony Palmini, who was behind the Dominican Ninja and Gente of Thrones. We decided to do a parody on Narcos, which is called Knuckles, which is a play on the Nutcracker, which is super popular in the Bronx and Washington Heights. But I'm reimagining that world if there was cartels in control of this. So I think maybe we created like us talking about different mediums. We created a medium of fake trailers. Like, hey, imagine if a show came out like this. Here's what this trailer will look like. And so that has been something that I worked on. I can say this now because it's coming out, but it's like I was at a point where we were still having COVID. Not when I shot it was like April, May, so it wasn't like strict. But I was like, I can't do little group things, this and that. Let me bring it down a notch, especially the script, the way it was written back in 2019 was like, oh, barbershop with da da da. I was like, I gotta scale it down. And it was a while for me. I haven't shot something in such a long time. So then I was like, I remember after the first day of shoot, I'm like, you know what? If I'm gonna play Pablo Escobar, Palomo Escobar, I gotta go all out. So I got a private jet. I went all the way to Long Island, and I rented a jet for a half hour. I went. I freaking rented out a boat. I went to in Washington Heights there's that mansion, there's a museum. I was like, if I'm coming back and I haven't done this in a while, it kind of have to look like I stepped it up. So I went and I did that, and it feels like a regular show, but it's a comedy. I'll actually send it to you guys. But yeah, I want to, when the time allows, continue to create that because people look forward to it. It's a lot of fun, and it's just a joy to create these little contents, these vignettes that are it's in some ways like when we did Dominican Ninja, there were people hitting us up like, yo, you should make this into a series. Like,
Yes,
I've never heard that.
I was
like,
one of those people. I was like, make this is gonna be awesome.
Because what are you being racist saying that there can't be Dominican ninjas? Why not? Right? So then I'm like, oh snap, right? So like how our brains work, right? Like that part of making sure content probably is like right here was like was not activated. It's activated right now. So I don't know that if it's just all writing. Now I feel like it's got activated, and I feel like, okay, you know what? Let me be smart about it. But it's so much fun because look, when you're doing a big long piece, it may take a year and a half for finally people be like, oh, that's what you've been up to. But when you do a short piece, you just put it out there, and the comments and the whole nine, and it's a different drug, So yeah. So I have a couple of other things that I'm working on. That hopefully in the near future I can, say, hey, this is what I'm working on. But Knuckles is one that will be coming out soon, and I hope people enjoy it.
Oh, I'm sure they will. It sounds amazing. I can't wait to watch.
I can't wait to watch it.
I'll send it to you guys right now.
Wait, did you say
live while we do it? You could edit this out, but I will send it to you.
Yes.
What was that name you just said for Pablo?
Palomo.
Palomo.
It's a Palomo ahí. Yeah. And that wasn't even me. It's this damn Colombian guy that like he was like, yo, instead of Pablo Escobar, let's call him Palomo Escobar. I was like, wow. There's little things like that in the trailer that you're like, oh my God, wait a minute, I gotta see it again. And that's the other thing too, is like, I think what mastering short form, you want to get to a point where you want to see it again, right? Because sometimes you can get to a point where it's like, all right, so and whatever. I think we kind of got it to a point where you're like, hold up, wait a minute, I gotta see it again. So, but I'll send you like the we transfer it so you guys can kind of get the idea of it, so that when it comes out, and that's my gift for having me on the show. I give you an exclusive.
Thank you so much.
Even on his art gift.
So yeah.
So Michael, I have a really serious question.
Yes.
Uh-oh.
What do you identify as? Latinx, Latino, Hispanic?
That's a great question. So another thing that I worked on recently, I did a Man in the Street thing about labels, right? How how does everyone label themselves? And so I learned a lot because when we say Hispanic, right, it has this feel. But when I was asking Dominicans in Spanish, it's Hispano. It has a different flow to it, right? And I was joking because apparently there's a lot of people that use Hispanic and Latino. Because when you fill out forms, paperwork wise, you do Hispanic. But when you're in public saying it verbally, you say Latino. And I was noticing that a lot. That was a trend. I was like, so what do you use, Hispanic or Latino? Both. I'm like, but wait a minute, which one would you want to prefer? I was like, no, both Hispanic and Latino. For me, I'm a troll, so I think I created one. You'll see it in the video that I did, but I don't know. I think for me, it's I've been using Latino, Latino, Latina, Latinx to be crazy. You should try this as an experiment. Ask everybody you know, and maybe 2% of people will use Latinx. It's weird. It's a industry thing. It's always like up here, but amongst everybody, I asked so many Dominicans. They're like, Latinx, ¿qué es eso? Latinx. Yo nunca he oído de eso. No, no. Latinx, no. No, yo no he oído de eso. Hispano, sí. Latino, sí, but Latinx, okay. Latine, because Latine is a new one as well.
Now, did you
So
get that across the board from males and females?
for Latino,
For
Hispanic,
Latinx?
yeah. Latinx, yes, yes, yes. Now, mind you, Washington Heights, Friday afternoon in a 20-block radius, right? So that's in fairness, but different ages and even young. Like funny enough, I got blessed. I spoke to these two guys that are like old school, like yo, the Illuminati's real, son, right? Those types. And I saw it because they didn't want to be on the camera. And then I was like, yo, so I had to like code switch. I'm like, yo, real quick, how you identify yourself, right? So then I gave him the new term that I created, which is called X, his, her, panic, Latino. I actually just put all them all together in one. And then yo, I was like, yo, how would you feel if the government mandated you had to use this new label? I was like, nah, man, that's like Illuminati. They're just trying to put us in one thing, yo. Latinos are not like that, yo. We all different. And a lot of Dominicans too were like, eso no, yo soy dominicano y así. Yo soy dominicano. No me diga de Latino, Hispano, Latinx. Yo soy dominicano. I was like, so bottom line for me, because I put a Facebook status like about a month and a half ago, and it's like World War III. Like everybody can't agree to it. So I figured I identify myself as like Latino, Latina, Hispanic, but I respect whatever label everybody else wants. I'll do that because that's where we get into where people are like, we should have this as the official one. It's not gonna happen. And that's part of the sketch that I did. I was like, hey, before I go in the street, I want to see a term that can get us to be monolithic. And it's like, no. But I played the character that was my goal. I'm gonna find a term that everybody can agree with, and you can't. And I think that's like the misconception. I got schooled. There were some people that were like, no, esos son los blanquitos que vienen ahí, quiere ponernos nosotros en one umbrella y eso no es, yo soy así. I was like, so I was trying to be funny and troll, and I got educated that day, like a couple Fridays ago. I was like, yo, that shit is deep. So it was fun. So yeah, my 15-minute answer to your question is Latino.
Awesome. Les, do you have our final question for
We
Michael?
have a wild card,
Ooh.
which is who is your favorite Latino comedian
Huh?
from back in the day?
Oh, from back in the day?
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with and while I answer this, not to get deep, whatever, I'm going to go back to when I was 5 or 6 years old with the old school television that you didn't have a remote that my parents would be like, mira, cambia canal, ponga eso. And Chapulín Colorado, where he was,
Oh, okay.
you know what I'm saying? Like how he played different characters. And that sort of was the first seed of like comedy to me, where I was watching it, but not understanding, you know, I'm just a kid. But you were doing this, you were waiting for.
I was waiting for, because you said 5, I was waiting for Cantinflas, but Chapulín would be.
Cantinflas, but Cantinflas, I wasn't able to appreciate him because, again, you know, my parents being the way they, whatever, I only got to be exposed to Chapulín Colorado. Like, I never got to Cantinflas until I got older, and I'm like, yo, because people, we would talk about even the mustache and who he is as a genius. I wasn't able to be, I wish, but, and because as I got older, I was like, yo, this dude is a beast. But I was the Chapulín Colorado and the yeah, and that was the seeds. They were like, oh, okay. And then Leguizamo was the one when I was a little bit older, that I saw that my friend would record from HBO and put it on his, you know, on his VCR, and he would play, and I was like, oh my God, that's my uncle. This is this. That's what like really got me to being like, oh, you know what? I'm auditioning for this and that. Nah. We got to start creating.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned Leguizamo, like going back to our Michael Peña thing, I feel like John is the 30-minute version of the 10-minute version of John Peña.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
yes.
Still to this day remember the movie Spawn and the clown that he was so good in that.
Yes.
I mean, he always kills it. And he's in chunks of things where he just kills it, and you're just like, why isn't this person I mean, he is a star. He's a star to us.
Yes.
But yeah, he's another one.
But you know, that's the thing about John, and the more that I've heard throughout all the years, he's another one. He thrives when it's him creating his world. When he does these one-man shows, I mean, obviously he has the director and the people developing it with him, but he thrives in that. You get 100% concentrated orange juice John Leguizamo. Like, that is the epitome. When he's doing different mediums, okay, he's dealing with other stuff. He might not get the 100%, but his true form that we see, that we're like, yo, is the theater stuff, because that is where it's all 100% John. And so I think that's why it's like, because, you know, this is a business, and you have relationships, and you have the intricacies and the casting, and, you know, all the politics that are involved. There are no politics when it's just John on a stage and one mic, and you just get 100% John, which is why it's like, he is a star, but I feel like that's his calling of greatness, is that, because you can't hang with him when it comes to that one-man show and all those Latino characters he does.
Yeah. Agreed. He's amazing.
Man, this has been so great. Thank you so much.
Likewise, yo. Thank you for having me. I appreciate this, and I feel like these are the conversations we must be having, right? Because I think that we get so busy creating, but we really need to have that dialogue, because, you know, I'm old, but there's the 15, I know, right? It's the cancer in me. I have to be self-deprecating, you know? But there's the 15 and 16 and the 17 and 18 and 20 that are like, they need to get this information in there so they can just boop, 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 just jump some steps in there.
It's like you were saying, legacy building.
Yeah, and that's why, like, sometimes people like that's why Jarrell Jerome, who's like 24, won an Emmy, right? Or got a Golden Globe.
Exacto.
From the Bronx.
Exacto.
We've done all this where he could just jump in and be in Moonlight and being in these movies and not really have the baggage or the chip on the shoulder of 15 years. Because even John Leguizamo has a chip on his shoulder. Like, you hear him, it's frustration of being in the industry as a Latino all these years. This newer generation can take the good from us and just go full throttle and just not even work. We did the work to push it in there. And so I think that is the beauty of it. And these conversations allow people to understand the struggle and the process so that they can really appreciate it and go full throttle without worrying about any of the other stuff.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's
This
been
is like
so
Saturday
wonderful.
therapy. I like this. This 10 a.m. session here.
fantastic.
I like this.
This is awesome. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
You know, I definitely support anything you do. And you know, you have a fan here. Thank you so much.
We're Cancerian. Aries, like a cousin, but Cancerian siblings over here.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, you know. When's your birthday? You're July 12th or 10th?
No, I'm actually July 9th. Are you the 10th, right?
Oh no, I'm the 11th.
The 11th, okay.
Still, you know, still, you know.
Don't worry.
You know, it's you know, March 26th.
You're there.
I'll write on your wall. So we'll be Facebook friends and I'll write on your wall, right?